Before we start, I'd just like to acknowledge that we're all on the land of Aboriginal people from around New South Wales. I'm on the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and I pay my respects to elders past and present. I'm going to just provide you with a little bit of an update of what's happened in the last week, and then I'm going to hand over to Samantha McGolrick, who is the consultant that we have engaged to kind of provide concrete, practical, one-on-one support, hopefully, to you so that we can get you not only meeting the deadline of 22nd of December around the COVID risk management planning work, but also to provide some ongoing support around adjusting and making sure what you're implementing is practical going forward as well. That's our plan. So in terms of just catching you up, we've spent quite a lot of time this week providing feedback to REBEC on the DCJ COVID risk planning guidance. You should have hopefully have received information from multiple sources around the webinar that's being held next Monday for homelessness services from 12:30 till 2. That REBEC will facilitate and DCJ will manage, and it will provide, we anticipate, an overview of those guidelines. We are also anticipating that the guidelines will be available either tomorrow or Friday. We say that because the webinars for the other areas of the NGO sector start on Friday, so we're assuming that the guidance needs to be completed by then. And what the guidance will be is an incredibly comprehensive document that gives you absolutely everything in terms of what's expected from a DCJ and public health order and legal kind of perspective. But unfortunately, from our viewing of it, it has not been that practical and it's not that detailed. So that's why we've continued to look for and have found Sam, as a consultant to really provide you with that practical support. That's really what's needed at this point. So expect from the guidance from DCJ, you will have a risk management template will be included in that. It will have sections on working with staff, working with clients, mitigation, and links, a huge range of links to legal fact sheets, public health order information, health information. So I think just think of it as something as like a one-stop resource that you may not read the whole thing from start to finish, but when you need particular information that's up to date on what the government may or may not have said about COVID, then you can use it as a resource in that way, as well as providing you with some general kind of advice around PPE, working with clients, vaccination, etc. So just to, I guess, set everyone's expectations. You may already have those kinds of expectations in terms of the work that you do with DCJ already, but I just wanted to lay that out there. So we're going to spend this hour with you just really helping Sam prepare to tailor the work that she's going to be doing with you as well as she can, so that by next Wednesday, we can kick off the one-to-one support and getting the advice, the practical advice that you need and guidance that you need. So we're just unfortunately going to have to use this session yet again to kind of gauge where everyone's at. But I think it's going to really help us in the end. And our intention is probably for next Wednesday, debriefing from the REBEC webinar that you have on Monday, any questions that you have around the guidelines and guidance, and then from then on, we promise it will be subject matter based. It will be based on practical work so that you can get across the line by the 22nd of December. We're also incredibly aware that it's the 17th of November. For any organisation to get this ready, you probably are well advanced in terms of getting this done because of the need to get board approval and get everything in line in terms of the deadline that we have. So we're happy, as I said, to work with you along where you're at in the journey. There will be no expectation that the advice that Sam provides you means that you start entirely again in any way. It's about working with you where you're at. And as I said, we really want to focus on making sure that this is really not just about creating a plan to meet DCJ's expectations, but actually a plan that you're implementing that's actually practical, understood by staff, and is actually mitigating the risks that we all need to manage. So hopefully that's a good kind of overview of where we're at. Does anyone have any questions or comments about any of that before I hand over to Sam? No, stick your hand up is probably the easiest thing if you've got any questions or any comments too. No? All right. I'll give you one last chance. But no, okay. All right. Well, I might just hand over to Sam. So Samantha McGolrick is a consultant that specializes in health and safety, amongst other things, but in health and safety advice. And she's had a range of different jobs before becoming a consultant that has focused on that. And so we're really pleased that she's available to do this at short notice and quite intensively. We've had to have very intensive conversations over the past 3 days just to get her head around it. And so, we will be working together to work this out as we go, really. And so we're grateful for Sam's expertise in a particular area, and really, looking forward to having her support you as we do this work. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to you, Sam.
Okay, thanks, Catherine. Hi, everyone. Thanks for basically having me here, Catherine, and I hope that I can serve this sort of mission that all of you guys are involved in, the way that with the expertise that you need, and I'm really interested in and value the work you do. So I'm happy to be part of this journey, although it seems a bit full on, I'm happy to be here to support you. The one thing I'd probably bear in mind with me, I haven't worked necessarily in your sectors before, so I'm going to be looking to you to ask to explain a bit around the types of activities that you guys are involved in, and that's what some of the poll will be used for as well. But just I've worked with a number of organizations in a number of different industries, and part of the process is asking good questions. So that's where the skill set is into to get the information I need from you. I kind of know what I need to ask, but bear in mind I don't have necessarily all the answers, but I know how to get the information that we need, and I'll do my best to help. We have talked about Catherine and I, how we wanted to approach this. So I wanted to, we have a poll set up that's going to help me get a little bit of insight, as Catherine's saying, into the context, where you're at, what your challenges are. The poll is going to have a number of questions that I just want you to run through, give me those answers that like yes and no. And it's basically around you setting up your COVID-19 risk assessment, the business continuity plan, which is basically how you're dealing with if you do have a COVID case, and also the COVID-19 safety plan, the risk assessment, and the continuity plan. And then I'll move into a few other questions in the chat box around some more informal less structured questions. So Lucia, if you can put the poll forward, let's start there. And feel free to jot stuff in the chat box along the way if you have any other questions. But right now, if you could just take a look at the poll and give me some feedback and give me your answers to that. That would be helpful. Okay, good. So some people's got, a number of people have stuff in final stages. That's all of them. Okay. Number of people want someone to look at the final before it's completed. A number of people probably want some one-on-one support. Those that don't, that'll be interesting to see, okay, what you're needing. Some of the other questions might answer that. Have you completed the risk assessment? Yeah, great, guys. I think, and one of the things I often find from engagements like this is when you're asked to formalize a lot of documentation, you're doing a lot of it anyway. And so it's really getting the information out of those who are doing it and your staff or yourselves, and kind of putting that into something. So I must say, even if you haven't done the risk assessment, I'm sure you're doing a lot of things, and a lot of the information is just being thrown at you, and it's a lot to take on. And too much choice is often a stressor, but we'll limit that. And I'm sure you're doing a lot of good stuff already that we're just going to look at capturing. Okay, so I'm thinking you guys might be done. Give you, I'm not seeing any more movement on it. So would you say that's done, Lucia? I don't know if you can tell or not. But...
I think it would be good if anyone is having problems completing the poll, maybe raise your hand and speak up, or chat in the chat, and we can just, it should just be in the bottom menu. You'll see a little thing that says polls. Just click on that and then you can just answer your responses there. But we might
there's some more.
We've got a hand raised here with Jan.
My name's Tash. I'm doing the compliance for Jan, so that's why she's put me in here. And I just the reason I'm putting my hand up is because I don't think that she's got any of the above, so I've said no to all just so I can cover what we need to do. I don't think we've got any plans at the moment. So
okay, no problem, Tash.
Thanks.
Now, yeah, there's about half the people that have participated in this, and I mean, it's up to you. This is for me to get a better idea of how to support you. So if you're having troubles, definitely let Lucia know. But if you're not looking to answer them, that's also fine. I can take this information.
I might just keep the poll open.
Yeah, do that. That's a good idea.
And then if people who haven't yet completed it feel inspired to, you can still do, but we can move on.
Yeah. Some people might need to do a shout out, a call a friend to see where we're at. Okay, so look, that's going to give me some good insight into what I'm going to prepare for Homelessness New South Wales. I've got a few other questions here that I might just jump in given the time, and I want to make sure I capture all this stuff, and then we can leave it open for you guys to ask anything that you might have that's a pressing matter. So I want to know, what do you think, or what is the kind of biggest trouble you're having in your risk assessment right now? Is it about identifying hazards? Is it about the controls you need to put in place? Is it about the risk ratings? Or is it about something else? And this is about your risk assessment. So I wonder if I should write this into the chat. Hazards. What do you need more help with identifying? Hazards, controls, or risk ratings? Or none of the above. And we record these, so it just, again, helps me kind of take away some information to put something together. Can everybody, does anybody, I'm not sure if anybody's answering, and maybe you don't need any. Okay, right there we go. Sorry, maybe I'm not giving enough time. There's a lot of information in the document that I've looked at from the department, and I've just started these discussions. As Catherine said, we've kind of jumped right in, and I'm trying to get my head across everything that you need to get across, and that takes a little bit of deciphering what is important for this particular meeting. So bear with me, because I'm definitely not across everything yet. Yeah, controls. Yeah, how should it all be presented? Yeah, controls that are current. This is like an ever-changing space right now. It's really quite difficult to keep up the momentum with what needs to be done. And you know what? That's okay, because that's what a risk assessment is. It changes every so often, and when things change, we go back and review it. But at this point, we're going to take a point in time and say, this is what we're doing. And then we got to talk about, okay, who is going to be able to advise you on the kind of, how will you get the information on the most current updates? And I assume homelessness does this, but we'll figure out some way to kind of make sure that you're aware of when something is more current. And maybe that will be coming through these webinars that are, there's one webinar on Monday, but we'll figure out a way to make sure that you're up to date on things that might need to change. But just know it's a point in time.
So generally, Sam, the updates come every which way. They come from DCJ and they also come from us. So but using the community practice is a good suggestion in terms of keeping the information central, because that's been one of the challenges as well.
Okay, that's a good, yeah. Okay, that's good for me to know. Thank you.
And Sam, one of the things that I was having trouble recently was trying to find the framework. I know that I think it was in like all the documents that have been sent through, but because we've used, and I think we've used a slightly different framework because we did our risk assessment some time ago. So I just want to make sure that our documents are up to speed with the current framework too. So it would be good to know where to locate that, even if I could get the link or something again.
The framework is coming out hopefully tomorrow. So this is why you can't find it. It's not been released yet.
Is this a risk assessment framework?
Yeah, that's right.
I thought I saw a framework.
So NCOS have put some information together. This is the issue. So NCOS have put some information together, and DCJ are releasing the entire guidance hopefully tomorrow, and it includes a risk assessment template that helps you. Having said that, the question around how much info and how to present it is a really tricky one because there isn't any real guidance around that. It is actually up to the organisation, but Sam can help with that, I'm pretty sure, in terms of doing one-on-one, right, Sam?
Oh yeah, no,
that would be good. Yeah, I mean we've kind of mapped it out. We've got quite a lengthy risk assessment, but it's not against this new framework, which I have obviously dreamt about because I thought it was out. I thought I'd seen it. But thank you, Catherine and Sam.
Yeah. And I think if you're put together a risk assessment, I've seen some things come out, maybe they're in draft and stuff, but anyway, let's wait on that. And no problem. Framework is not a problem. And yeah, that might even lead into my next question, which actually was this. If I was to complete, okay, I'm going to leave that other question there. What do you need more help with? Thank you guys for answering that. If we were to complete a template risk assessment and a COVID safety plan and a business continuity plan, and then asked you to take that and tailor it to your business, would that be helpful? Oh, I could have, put that into the question. You're going to answer it before I probably get there. So I'm going to, my question's a little late with that. I didn't want those to be in the chat. I wanted them to be a bit more informal. That's generally what we were expecting. And I've done this approach with other businesses where it's quite useful to put together a template. Clearly that helps you. It helps us sort of have for later, for you to have some like consistent approach where it's almost like a central repository where you can go to see like, did I think about that? Oh, okay, they've done that. That makes sense. Those controls are useful. What's also really helpful with that is that I understand the hierarchy of controls. So if you've had risk management training in health and safety, you'll know that you need to go through the hierarchy, which is about eliminating a hazard first, and then kind of looking at other ways that we deal with hazards that are much better than putting in a policy or doing training or PPE. COVID is a lot of PPE, but if there's ways, definitely we always think to eliminate a hazard first. And that's very useful with those sorts of things, because I might say certain things that you should think about in terms of eliminating that often businesses don't necessarily think about because you're kind of you know how you do your work, and sometimes you need a fresh perspective. Okay, yes, as well as we review our documents. Yeah, we over. Okay, all right, let's move on so you guys can get back to stuff, given that this is really just a planning meeting. I should just copy and paste these. Are you finding it difficult to consult with workers or clients or the public? You know that you need to consult in controls. That's part of the health and safety work WHS legislation. So, and have you started consultation? Consultation is a tough one because you first of all have to have kind of identify the various parties. Sometimes it's clear, sometimes it's not so clear who you need to consult with. And then it's figuring out, okay, well, what is the best forum for that? And what do I need to consult on? And then what sort of records are appropriate for that consultation? So that's some things to think about in terms of the answering this question. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are we asking best process? Yeah. Okay. Not clients or public. Okay. Yeah. That's part of in their guidance kind of draft stuff that I've been looking at. They're in the risk assessment, the framework, for instance, they're talking about, okay, well, you need to identify these different parties. And you definitely have workers, clients, members of the public in certain circumstances, and they give a few different examples. But yeah, we definitely need to figure out who those parties are and how we engage with them. And it's kind of like a stakeholder matrix that we could put together just to be kind of clear on who you need to be speaking with, and you tailor it your own way. Okay. Okay. You can keep on that one, put consultation in your answer if you can, and then I can ask another question. So generally speaking, what are your immediate concerns? What is keeping you guys awake right now? There's so many different variables in what these, in having a COVID safe workplace, that it's hard for, I mean, the department's asking for certain requirements, but you might have some specifics that you're dealing with, or it might be some of the stuff they're already sending out information on, but I'd like to get a bit of a picture on, yeah, what your challenges are. And I will take this offline. Yeah, I'm thinking unvaccinated, and vaccinated is going to be one of the things. Yeah, and we're not going to be solving that problem today, sorry. But I will definitely be reading through a lot of the stuff that we've got the information and some better practice stuff, and I'll do my best to help you have conversations and determine what you want to do. The differences in PPE, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Can you keep a valued staff member? Exactly, if they don't want to be vaccinated. I think this is like one of the biggest questions. Keep going. Let me know that, and I'm sure I'll get this last question for you, and I'll get it. I'll understand if you're just saying your biggest issues here. But what do you want out of these COP meetings? And I was thinking we could be sharing some, so as I put together this risk assessment, if that's where we end up doing, still need to speak to Catherine about that, but it seems like, that's probably something that's going to come out of this, that, where there's some lesson that is. So firstly, because we might want a template, the poll, we're going to be sending out a poll after this. You might've seen that in the invite, and I need you guys to complete that. It's pretty much a little bit more from this, but I need that to kind of support this, the kind of report that we're getting from this. So please do the poll. But in the poll, it's also going to ask you some very tailored questions around your activities. When I do these types of risk assessments and get a template, I need to understand the business more than I do at this point. And you guys have a very number of different types of, I guess, different businesses. So I'm going to be able to have some very template stuff, but anytime that you can say some more specific things, or just that I'll highlight some activities that Catherine and Claire will be able to get me across, but definitely need you to say, yes, this is relevant to my business, and these are some specifics that I'm concerned with, or that are unique that you haven't mentioned here. So please do the poll. It's going to come out by Friday. And then we need that information before the next, I think you call them COP meetings. So yeah, can I go with the acronym? Yeah, returning to work, yeah. Okay. So I'm going to let that kind of go. You guys give me some answers in there, what you want from these meetings. Feel free to just jot stuff down. But in the meantime, I think I just want to open it up to, I guess, if you think we haven't, there's something pressing right now. As I say, I'm not going to be able to answer the vaccination question right now. So if there's anything else, though, that maybe around these meetings and what you're looking for, or any current questions that Catherine or I can answer, please feel free to kind of put your hand up, I guess we're saying is the best way. But it could just be that I'm just getting information at this point, and you might have some time back in your diary.
Sam, I think Joanne has a question. Joanne?
Great. I love the little hands. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I just wanted to, I know it was raised earlier, but I didn't quite get what we've got a continuity plan in our risk assessment, but what's the safety plan? Like what's the what is that? What is that?
So whenever you do can I answer that, Catherine? Yeah, okay.
We can both do it, but you do it. You're the expert.
Oh, well, you might have seen more of the information they're saying what it is, but a plan is always supported by a risk assessment. So that's the first thing. So we're going to do a risk assessment, and then it's really a lot about taking controls out of that and saying what the actual output of that is. What are we going to do? That's the tool you go back to. The plan is what you look at. You don't really go back to a risk assessment. That's part of the process of framing the plan.
Yeah, that is exactly what I would say too, Sam. But I think in the guidelines, and Luch, you might need to help me out too, the COVID safety plan as referred to in REBEX documentation is actually what everyone was required to do at the beginning of the pandemic based on the public health orders. But what Sam's talking about is far more important, which is the plan actually in terms of implementing what you've done after you've done your risk assessment.
So what do they want? Something that's, never mind, I'm not asking.
No. I can answer it quickly, just go over it. So there's 3 components, but there's actually 4 as Sam's talking about it. So there's the first component is your COVID safety plan, which everyone was required to do based on the public health orders. So really the COVID safety plan as it stands now, and it doesn't make sense as I'm saying this out loud. So is, having people work from home if they can, adhering to the public health orders and all of that. The business continuity plan is what you all had to put in, what you need to put in place in terms of delivering the service in the context. And then the risk assessment is what you need to do to identify how, what risks you have and how to mitigate them. And then as Sam says, that goes into a plan that sits alongside your business continuity plan, really, in terms of managing service delivery going forward. It's very hard to talk about all this when you guys haven't seen the guidelines and we've seen the drafts. And so, I think my main message, and I was saying this to Luch this morning, so maybe I should say it now, is we should, the really important things here, which is what Sam's been talking about, is actually what you're implementing to make sure that you've got a safe workplace. So the requirements that DCJ are asking for are important for sure, but the actually really important part is making sure that you have a risk assessment and a plan that ensures that you're mitigating the risk as it relates to COVID, if that makes sense. The guidance, as I was trying to say politely, the guidance we've seen so far is 100 pages. There's a lot of information in it. And so I don't think you can, it's got the information there for sure, but it's not very practical in how to actually do the work. So that's why we've asked Sam to come and help, if that makes sense. Di, you've got a question?
Yeah, thank you. Sam, I'm not sure if I heard you correctly. Something about once the risk assessment's done, it's sort of done, you don't go back to it. Is that right?
Yeah, well, only unless it needs updating. Yeah,
right.
The idea, that's the planning process. That's us. Like there are many times where I'll go into an organization and say, well, how did you get to this? And they're, well, this is what we do. Well, no, you need to start. The legislation expects a risk assessment to be done. And the way we want it, the risk assessment is often the tedious process. And we just want to make that as easy as possible, almost like you're ticking and you're thinking about things that I've already put in front of you and any other things that I might not have thought about. And then that sort of like sits to the side. And where you want people to go back to is the plan. What do we actually do? How do we monitor that that's in place? Okay, once a year, we go back to our risk assessment unless something changes, for instance.
So increase in transmission locally and that kind of thing would need a review.
Yeah. Something changes, requires us to think about our controls or the risk rating. Yeah. And that's just that's good. That's keeping that fresh in mind, that what would trigger, and that's something I should think about too, in terms of the template, what would trigger us to kind of reflect back on the risk assessment? Because that's probably something, if we're going to have a template, that we'll need to know when we go back to that and just kind of push out that this might be something you need to think about that's changed.
Thank you.
So we've just changed it's Belinda from TFSS. We've just redid our risk assessment because our percentage of staff vaccination, voluntary vaccination rates went up. So then that changed one of our,
Exactly. Anybody else at this point? This is such a great turnout. Thank you for coming and giving us this information. Yeah, I'm not seeing any the hands raised. Catherine, I'll pass back to you. Oh, I guess, sorry, before I do, one thing I just wanted to help kind of ease maybe your minds here is that we've talked about this December 22nd, and Catherine's alluded to this too, that it is a tight time frame to figure out all of this documentation. Okay, so that much I think we can appreciate that's difficult. And even at the best of times, we can hardly put this much information together in a changing environment like this. But just know that I think what Catherine and I were sort of talking about, it's a good thing to kind of get the plan in place, the documentation in place. But I mean, implementation is kind of that next stage. So just worry about a little bit about getting it documented, getting it down. And then if the implementation is sort of worrying you, or I've heard, how does this connect to other, like, where does this end? How many resources do we need to connect to this in our system? That is something you're going to need to think about, but let's think about just getting this almost sort of a little bit in isolation, because we want to get it down and we want to get it captured, but it's a work in progress. So I'm just trying to kind of not have it too stressful. You've got a deadline. We just want to get the information documented and make sure it works and it's relevant for you. But, implementation, that's a staged process. So just bear in mind that it's a moving process. It's a continuing process.
Yeah, sure. Great. Are there any other questions about, look, this is an opportunity. This is going to be an ongoing conversation. And Trisha's just said she wants to look at the poll and redo it. Go for it. If you want to redo your poll answers, go for it. Now's your opportunity. Just now that you understand a bit more about what the different terms and so on we were flying around. Di, you've got a question, and apologies about my dog.
My question was around the risk assessment. Does it need to be done for each funding contract, each funded service, each location, or is an overarching sense of that? We've got 4 different sites and multiple funding contracts. So,
Deanne, can you, sorry, I said I wouldn't call on you, DCJ, not part of the section of DCJ. I'm going to make a stab of it at this, but if I'm wrong, can you jump in? Yeah. I would have thought it's one organizational risk management plan, but it should incorporate all the aspects that you would need to consider. So if there's multiple sites, you'd need to do a risk assessment based on each site. Does that sound correct, Deanne? Are you there? Got to unmute. Sure, you're muted, Deanne, you're muted.
Darn it, so many times. I was just looking through the draft. I'm sure that is what I've read, Catherine. It's for each, like when you've got multiple sites, because that absolutely makes sense. You've got different contexts, so different risk environment. So I'll just look through. I'll keep looking through while you're continuing on, see what I can find.
Sure, thank you. I mean, I do think it's, again, one thing I would just emphasize, it's what works for your organization. So really what you need to be doing here, DCJ need to be assured that you have done some risk management planning, and that's what they're going to base their assessment of you in January about. You're not going to have to submit your plan to them for review or anything like that. They just want to know that you've done it. So really you should look at the templates and how you do it in the way that actually, number one, covers what you're required to do and is actually practical for you are the 2 things I'd emphasize. And Sam, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I think that's what's practical. I need to get my head across the kind of what you meant, what was meant by funding and sites. Look, like you don't want to have 5 different risk assessments that you go to. And a lot of the sites, I assume, will have overlapping hazards, sort of like the similar hazards. So, you want to have in the risk assessment, we might have an area, I think it already has one, where you have what are the sites that are included in this hazard? What sites experience this hazard? And you can just name all of your sites in there. So my first kind of inclination is to say you're not going to need different risk assessments, but it's definitely about being practical, what works for your business. I hope that helps.
Joanne, you have another question?
Yeah, just to what we've done, so far is we've done our business continuity plan and our risk assessment, and the different sites off the back of the one risk assessment, they're actually doing their service plans as we speak. So that's how we've done it. So it'd be good to have your input, Sam, in reviewing the documents that we have so far. Like, of course, we'll cross-reference with the documents that come out with the guidelines, but it would be good to get your feedback to see if that was the most appropriate way for our context at DB West. So yeah, that's what we've done.
Okay. You know what I'd say if I understand that correctly, the risk assessment might capture all of the different types of risks that you have across your business. Your plans, remember, that's the output of your controls, basically, whether the language is whatever it is, but the plan that you need to kind of look back to and understand what you're supposed to do, that can be different per site, because each site will have a little bit different thing that happens there that we just need to reflect generally. So, but all the risks from all the sites could easily be captured in a risk assessment. And then we pick out the stuff that's really relevant to that plan for that site.
That's how we've done it.
Good.
Yeah.
That's what I would recommend too.
Great. Are there any other questions? Otherwise, we can have an early mark and we can get started on getting the survey together, the poll together, get the information out to you so that you can then hopefully book in some time with Sam and get started on this. We have no idea of the volume of services that are likely to want this support, so we may have to adjust what we're able to provide to you based on, you know, whether we have 5 services who need support or 240 potentially that we could be getting. So we are looking at limiting it in various different ways, which you should be used to if that happens. So for example, if we get a high volume of requests, then we will be prioritizing the smaller organizations, so those with revenue under 5 million. So just be aware that we may need to do that kind of capping based on what the uptake is of this support to you as well. So just bear with us while we sort all that out. Hopefully over the, you know, and we will definitely have how this is all going to work by next Wednesday, and we can just get started on it is the plan. Any other questions or comments before we give you a little bit of an early mark? I'm just going to say welcome, Sam. It's great to, having just spoken to you on the phone, it's great to see how you work, which is, I think, going to be a really strengths-based and supportive way. So it's just great for you to have come along today and to sort of structure it in a way that's hopefully inspiring everyone with some confidence around the fact that we can all get this done, and it is going to be really useful for your services. And you know, hopefully we'll all laugh in, you know, March, April, when we're in a different space about all the work we did on this, and now we're doing work on something else. So yeah, thank you all for coming today. Really appreciate the feedback you've provided, and look forward to your responses in terms of the survey, which we'll ask you for your contact details around who's working on it in your organization, you know, what type of organization, what services you provide, where you're based, all of that sort of stuff as well, just so we can tailor everything as much as we can before Sam meets with you, so you can just kick it off and get started. Great. All right. We'll see you next Wednesday. Bye.